Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to 04/24/24. I just realized that's what the date is. At least for most of you people, that's what the date is. Because I live in the future, it's not as cool a number. 04/25/24. And in fact, in Australia, we also do the date correctly. So it's 25/04/24. All right, this has been This Week in the Dates. Uh, Welcome to this show. Um, a palindrome week, yes, depending on where you live. Um, all right. Look at all these happy faces. Robin's gotten quite a bit younger. Looking younger there, Robin. Nice background. uh, all right. Looks cool. Um, Sweet. All right. Well, we have a bunch of questions that people have put in. That's the best way to do it. We can That means that we can track the questions really easily when you do it through the dashboard. So typing your questions on the dashboard, ask a question, is the best way to do that. We still sort of keep an eye on the chat a little bit as well, specifically around the things that the topic that we're talking about. Um, so we like to go through the text questions first. People have taken time to write those down. And then if we have time, then we can take some other, or if you're on and you've asked a question, then you want to elaborate, then you can do that. We can open up the mic and do that. So generally, what we're trying to do is look at questions related specifically to Obvio and the use of how we're using that. We can also later on, as time permits, we can also look at things like general questions around online events and what you're doing. Zoom, specific Zoom questions, things like that. And then, of course, we often have a few production questions as well. And so if there's any sort of gear, what microphone to use, how do I do this, or whatever that is, then the geek in me and Blue often comes out, and we are happy to talk about those things. So we'll kick off with some questions. Heather, are you happy to read out those questions like the good old days?
Yes. Yeah. So the first one's from Jeff. He said, how do you add an intro in Zoom? Like if I want to add music for 3 minutes before I came on, could you create that for me by any chance?
I see. I'm guessing this was from Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Um, so, um, yeah. So there's a couple of different ways of having an intro audio and video playing out. Generally, what we do. So let's be clear to start with. There's nothing in Obvio specifically that helps you with this. So you'd be able to, Obvio helps you get your attendees into Zoom. Once they're in Zoom, then and you want to do different things with your sound and video, then that's up to you and how you've got your video going in audio and video going into Zoom. So a couple of different ways of doing it. What we like doing generally with shows is we like to have any audio and video that we're running go through the camera input. And the way that you do that is either through an external hardware where you have like an ATEM or some sort of switcher that Zoom sees as a camera, and anything that you switch to is like if I hit this, my input has just changed to a computer that I have connected, and so that's using an ATEM, and I'm able to switch. Now, of course, if I had a countdown video or something, then I could cut to that, I can play that, and away it goes. That's one way of doing it. The other way to do it is that's with hardware. With software, you can do it with software like OBS. OBS Studio is what it's called, free software on Mac and PC. What that can do is also be seen to Zoom like a virtual input. And now you can play out videos and things like that and see that in OBS. So often with all these things, and I'm sure Sarah, you've grown up in this world. You've grown up in a world where Google has just always existed. Um, Old people like me remember when there wasn't Google, and I spent most of my schooling without this thing called the internet. And it wasn't until high school that right at the end of high school, I think it was year 11, that there was one computer in the library that had access to the internet. And slowly things became more interesting. Um, so what I was getting at with that tangent about Google is often when we are researching things, um, it's knowing the right thing to search for. And when you're looking for something on YouTube, um, knowing the right thing to type into YouTube is half or more of the battle than anything else, because the world's information is all available to you. So the point is, um, you can search on YouTube for like OBS, OBS Studio and Zoom, or using OBS with Zoom, or things like that. And that is going to give you um, a whole bunch of videos about how to use OBS and Zoom. Once you've got all that working, now it's just about the content itself, which may have been your only question. You might have been happy with how to get your videos playing. Um, and you just wanted to actually create a video. Um, Muddy, is that where you were going with that? No. Um, so so to create you were talking about a countdown video. I felt like I've been talking for an hour and forgot your question. Was it a countdown video? Yeah.
Do with playing music before the event.
Yeah, music, yeah, and kind of an intro going into it. So it's interesting. I have an event this weekend that we just needed to update the intro, because what's really good is when you open up your event, and we really like I like to open my areas no less than 20 minutes before the advertised start of the show. I really like it's good from an Ovio point of view, getting people through and then getting into Zoom. And it's also just a great way to take the pressure off. Um, just like today, I started 20 minutes early. Um, not yeah, not quite. Um, so, but it works really well. But in those 20 minutes, I want to have something that plays, and so I often use a countdown video, and we'll put music to that countdown video, and then I can start my 20-minute video. 20 minutes out, and now I've got music playing. People come into the meeting with the appropriate music for them for that particular event. So there's a few different ways of making those countdown videos. You can also just use a YouTube video, and I've seen people do that. There's lots of you search for 20-minute countdown on YouTube, you get a lot of really cool videos, and you can open that full screen, and you can have that go into OBS, or you can share the screen, right? Like that. People do that with Zoom meetings all the time, and that can be quite effective. And you make sure that you select the button that says share system sound. And so now you're hearing the sound that's playing out. Does that kind of answer the question, Sarah? More so. Yes. Thank you. Muddy?
One, I agree with when you can send in audio and video through your camera feed, it's a really great, polished, professional look. The one challenge with that has to do with original audio. And so I wondered if you want to speak for a minute about that. And that's one of the simplifications that a screen share, for a simple event, that a screen share can overcome, because it'll play computer audio at whatever volume you have your computer volume set to, without really having to worry about original audio.
That's great. Yep, you're totally right. The and there is sort of a middle ground as well, where you can have your video going through your camera input and still share computer audio. And so that's something that you can do. But Marty's totally right. That in order to hear music properly through your normal microphone input, then you need to have original sound, or original sound for musicians, I think they call it now. Because otherwise Zoom continues to process it as if it's voice, and you won't hear the music either at all or very well. And you'll be wondering, why can I not hear the music properly? And it's because it's taking it out. It's just focusing on the spoken voice. So, so then there's that caveat, and you would have to change your settings to be able to handle that. Or, as Muddy says, when you're doing, because that's another thing that it doesn't do, is it's not just automatically sharing your system sound through your microphone input. That takes a bit more routing and playing around. So, a good way of doing it is by doing a screen share and sharing your audio. It is interesting that, and Mario, I wonder if you've noticed this, and in fact, I could do a test right now, is that in Zoom 6, when you do a computer audio, no, it's okay. I've noticed it's, for some people, it's now showing like a full window, rather than it kind of just, even when you're only sharing computer sound, it's showing. Did it show a window for you when I just did that, people? Or yes, it did. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I want to do a bit more testing on that, because what's happening now is that you can. It's a bit more available in Zoom 6, where you can. Yeah, I hate that. Yeah, you're right, Dorita. Yeah, I hated it too. I was like, why have they done that? And I think the reason they've done it is multi-screen sharing, because you can have multiple people share their screen at the same time, and then you get them like tabs at the top of the window, and you can choose whose screen you want to look at. Which is cool for business meetings, but less cool for events. So, anyway. Well, we've done a deep dive into Zoom things. We haven't spoken much about Obvio yet, so let's see if we have.
All right. Our next question's from Irina.
Just,
I've been having.
oh, I'm sorry. You just sent me a message saying there's a lot of questions. So shut up and move on. That was
a little.
Yeah. All right.
So Irina says, I've been having problems with broadcast emails. I got a red message, the channel.body field is required, and 2 more errors. I rechecked everything several times. Then after clicking several times, I was able to save it and the sign disappeared. Then I tried to duplicate the email and I got a blank email with the same error. I deleted it, started from scratch. I couldn't type anything at all. I also sent a test email that came through without the magic link, even though I chose the field from the drop-down menu.
Okay. So there's several things going on there. And let's just break it down a little bit. First of all, we have got a little bug that's appeared, that has been stopping you from being able to edit, once you do a process, and you save, and then you go to edit again. Sometimes in that email editor, you can't do anything, you can't change anything, and so when you refresh the page, then you totally can. So that's one thing that I think you might have had a little bit of. The email body thing, I haven't seen a bug with that at all. That sounds like it was empty, and then maybe it was together with that same issue of not being able to edit, and so you weren't able to put more text in. A refresh of that page should fix that issue. The test email is always using dummy data because it doesn't have an attendee to send actual data to. So when it comes to the merge fields that are in there, which includes the login URL that would be on the button, it won't work because it's just using dummy data, and that data may not actually be a URL. We need to do a better job at the test, and so that you can kind of say test and what's the attendee that you want to send it to, rather than just an email, and that way I can do a true test through. What I do encourage you, I tend to find that I do tests just for the look and feel of the email to make sure that it looks right. Then when it comes to testing the functionality of the email, what I do is I go and tag myself as com1, broadcast one, whatever. I tag it, and then I filter an email and say send it only to tags broadcast one, and it'll say one person will receive this, which will be me, and that is a complete test that will actually show you as an attendee. You can then test that the buttons are all correct. So, that's the best way of doing that test. So if you separate out those things, you should find, and I've been using broadcast a lot in recent days, and I haven't seen any of the other issues other than where it can't edit. So I refresh, and it works fine. You're refreshing the page, and that works fine. Duplicating works fine. So there's a few things that you had there. So if you separate out those things now and have a play, see where you're at. If knowing that the test is not going to give you the right links, and that the editor, sometimes you go into edit and it's disabled and you can't edit, refresh the whole page and it will work again. We're working on a fix for that. We're just trying to work out why that happened. So that's that. Cool. Great. Next question.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when you have like a magic link in the broadcast email, it won't even show up as a link. The other information will show up as dummy data, but usually there's no link that actually populates. So do what Grant said and make yourself a new tag, because I do get a lot of those questions in chat that they don't even see the link, but that's normal.
Yeah, we've got to fix it. We've got to work on that, make it better. Cool.
The next question is also from Irina. Obvio is connected to my Active Campaign. What do I need to do to create a field in Active Campaign with the Obvio magic link so I can email to my attendees from Active Campaign and have a magic link populated as a field in there?
That's a good question. I have not had experience with Active Campaign. Blue has done a video on that. Muddy?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two ways to do it. There's one where you first create the field, a custom field in Active Campaign, and then you can select that field in Obvio. Grant could talk about the services page and how that integration looks. But you can also do it from the Obvio services page. So there's a way to create a new field right from the integrations page in Active Campaign. So within attendees services, it shows all 8 services that are available for Obvio integrations, one of which is Active Campaign. Once you log in, and you probably know this much so far, once you log into Active Campaign from Obvio, that page will have a tag and then have a field. And so you can either create it first, and I'm happy to kind of give you more specifics on that, but that's generally the process.
Does that make sense, Irina?
Yes, it does. I know what he's talking about. I just need the details, but I know Blue knows ActiveCampaign. You don't usually. I understand that. Yeah.
That's okay.
Thank you, Maddie, and thank you, Grant, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So have a little play with that. That was the thing, that not every integration is the same, and one with ActiveCampaign particularly is the ability to create that field within Obvio, within the services page, and once it's connected there, creating that field, and then saying that that's the field that you want the login URL to populate. But you have,
yeah, I did.
you've done that before.
I did integrate. It's all working fine. It communicates with ActiveCampaign. So it was just one thing I needed, the field. So I'll play with it again.
Yeah. Yeah. So either way. So, and that when you're mapping those fields, that's what you do. You know the page I'm talking about. Once you've connected in Obvio, you can see the fields. You've got that.
I do.
Yep. Yeah. And then creating the field is either creating it within that page and saying, make a new field, create a new field, or going to ActiveCampaign, creating the custom field within ActiveCampaign, and then that will populate in Obvio, and then you'll be able to choose that to map that with the login URL.
Thank you.
Cool. Next question.
The other question from Irina is, can you explain polls, how to create a poll, where they can get the results, if they can toggle it on and off?
Okay. Two things. So to be clear first, that you're talking about a poll on Obvio on the dashboard, not in Zoom. Is that right? Yep. Okay. So a poll, we don't have a thing called poll, which was confusing. What we have is forms, right? Which is the same thing, but just so people are not like, I can't find the poll button, or how do I create a new poll? We don't have a thing called polls. We have forms, and so forms can be now. I because there's lots of questions today. I'm going to find, because I feel like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, is when Blue showed the new forms features with the moderation. And so I'll very quickly just give you an overview of what happens. But Blue went into detail and showed how you can also show the form results, and have the results show as well. So of a poll. But essentially you're setting up a form, just like you do any forms with the questions that you want, and then you're able to see the new moderation tool. So when you go, it's like, how do I talk about this quickly without going into lots of detail? But so to be clear, we created a form called poll just to confuse everyone. It was like, you go to forms, and people are like, I don't have a poll button there. It's like, no, we just happen to have a form called poll. And so when if we look at the poll itself, this is one that Blue created. Vote here. What's your favorite color? And added radio button. So you can only choose one option. The original option of being able to download the submissions is still there. The difference now is that we have back here, we now have moderation, right? Which shows the, it's less for polls, this one, but this is more about being able to see questions sort of coming in, which is what we're using for today's show. What there is also is statistics. So now this is where you get to see the results in a graph, or you can do a bar graph. So, but Blue goes into it in a bit more detail, but that's generally how you can do it. If you just create a simple form with the type of answers that you want, the questions and answers, and then you can just view statistics, and you can see it right there like that. All right, next question.
All right. This is from Jeff or Sarah. How long does it take for recordings to show up after the meeting? Just wondering, as I have a weekly meeting every Thursday and I have trouble finding the recordings when it's done.
Yes. So the way that recordings work with Zoom, the cloud recordings, is it's generally about the time that the meeting was, up to 1.5 times, depending on how long your meeting is, right? So you do an hour meeting, generally an hour after the meeting, you would see the cloud recordings there. Sometimes quicker, sometimes a bit slower, so it can depend on a few things, but they generally say about real time is about how long it takes. Probably between half to 1.5 times is really what I have seen. And so the way you find that is always in the Zoom area. This is another thing that we should fix and make a little easier. But when you're in a Zoom area, let me show you quickly. You choose your Zoom area, and then you choose here the room. And so often the room number there, often you might only have one room in an area. And then once you're there, you then go to recordings. So sometimes that can be a little confusing, because it's like, why is it not showing up? I've gone to my Zoom area, and where's the record button there? It's not there. It's not there. It's not there because it's not on the area page. It's on the room page. You click the room number, and now it's there for recordings. And then they show up. And the reason it takes a little longer is that depending on if there was screen sharing, how many people in the gallery view, but you will get these options, which is active speaker, full screen active speaker. You get gallery view. You'll get screen share view of just the screen share, and then you'll get combinations of them: active speaker with screen share, and gallery view with screen share, and then audio only, and then the transcript, and also the chat log as well. So all of those options become available. So it's worth remembering that, because you might not need the video of your meeting, but you'd love to have the transcript, or you'd love to have the chat log. And that's all available in recordings. Okay, next question.
Dorita posted that she left a recording running all day, but it shows as 3 recordings.
Yeah. So Zoom will separate out the recordings. So it segments them so that the files aren't massively, aren't huge. And so you'll find, and it numbers them sort of 1, 2, 3. And it does it not necessarily based on time, but file size. And even that file size is a little, it can vary. And so particularly when you have long days, yes, it will segment those into smaller recordings. But you should find that if you were to bring those into an editor and butt them up together, it will be seamless. And so that will edit in perfectly. Dorita?
Can I ask you another question?
Of course.
About the same thing?
Yeah.
So remember with that one event, we were doing the recordings and we lost it. It just basically stayed in a loop the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So then this time we also, we started the recording, and then we also allowed permission to record to the computer. And I don't think it did that either. So that's not solving the problem of recorded somewhere else also. So it sounds like there's some extra external stuff. So even though we're saying the tech is easy, it's not, because now we're having to do some extra things to record it separately. Would that be accurate?
Look, I think that redundant recording is best practice. And so best practice often does add complexity, right? Like with everything that we do, because it's after we've been through a rainstorm that we start planning for rainy days, even when we know it's going to be sunny. And so we learn the hard way about some of these things, and particularly in events, often we are doing things that create redundancy and give us backups, and because we've been burnt, it's happened. So, like we've been using Zoom for big events consistently for 4 years, and honestly, 99% of the time, the cloud recordings have been perfect. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible that it fails, right? More times than not, out of that 1%, what's the issue that it didn't record properly? The bulk of those reasons is that someone hit stop on the recording. I'm not saying that's what you did, right? I'm just saying that is often what happens. And particularly when every one of your co-hosts has the ability to stop recording, and the more co-hosts that you have, it's one of my pet peeves with Zoom is that we don't have granular control over the permissions that we can give our co-hosts. We'd love to be able to say they can do just this and this. They can rename people. They can talk in the chat. They can do certain things with breakout rooms, but they can't do anything with the recordings. They can't change the breakout rooms. Anyway, I'm getting on a tangent of wishing that there was more control. My point is, any one of your co-hosts can hit pause or stop on the cloud recording. And so that can be a problem. Now, but there is definitely, Dorita, there's definitely a subsection where we have seen issues with Zoom cloud recordings. There just has been, and so where it's been stuck where it says it's processing for, a week. Well, obviously that something's gone wrong with that file, and that can happen. So, two things. What you were talking
about. One more
about.
question, because I have this thing when people say, "Oh, Zoom kicked me out," or whatever. But
right.
I did yesterday. Every time we sent people to a breakout room, the same two people kept falling out and having to come back. It happened 4 times. So in the same 6-minute breakout, they just kept, every time they went over, they'd show right back up to admit to the room, and they'd be like, I don't know. And I don't know if that's I'm sure these are people who don't update their Zoom very frequently. Do you think that was it?
Probably, yep. Particularly when it's an isolated issue like that, and that's often what we see when we do breakout rooms, and 99% of the people have all gone through fine, and you've got that, a couple of people that are saying, yeah, I got kicked out or something happened, something weird happened. I think a combination of something funky with their computer, the combination of the computer and the Zoom version, can totally make, and an unstable connection as well, right? Like, essentially what's happening is that they're joining another meeting, when you go to a breakout room, although it happens instantly. That's kind of what's happening. And so if the connection is unstable and it's saying, okay, now go to this meeting, and it loses the connection just at that moment, just kind of wigs out a little bit, then it will just lose the connection and be like, okay, I don't know where we're going now, and it just kicks them out, right? So that would be a couple of ideas. But yeah, the things that I do is I'm like, make sure there's nothing else running on your computer as much as you can. Close everything else out. Have you done a restart in the last month on your computer? Some people haven't. let's restart the whole computer, and let's make sure Zoom is updated. Make sure you've got a good quality internet connection, and I think chances are it solves the problem. But if it doesn't, yeah, then I think it's worth flagging a bit more with Zoom. But I think once you do all those things, then now you're it's more likely it's all going to work, because Zoom's being used with millions of people a day. If they really had something where, oh, Zoom just kicks me out, it's all flaky and it's all bad, it's like that would be a disaster for Zoom if that truly was the case. So it's got to be that it's more likely it's their particular instance of what they're doing that's happening. So that's what I would say. But sorry, just on the recordings. So where you are going is a good place to go, and that is you can allow local recording for any person that's in the meeting, right? And what that then means is that you're doing a local record allow. So the option is allow record to computer, and they will then that individual, that attendee, will now get the option to hit record. And all that really does is anything that they're seeing on the screen at the time will be recorded to a file on the local computer, and that will then process that file once you've finished the meeting, and it'll say processing recording.
Grant,
So,
on that,
yep.
On that window, so when we practiced, we were able to do that, and we figured out, like, under the host controls, the host tools, they could do that. The day of the event, it was grayed out. Wouldn't let us do it.
So what can happen is the sequence of starting the cloud recording. And so
we started in Obvio recording first to make sure, because that's how we did it in practice. So that we make sure, because we wanted it to be recorded in Obvio. Mm-hmm. So we started it there, and then after we got everything set up, we gave permission. We opened it up for permission to be requested. She requested it. It worked, and it was on the computer a couple nights before. Then the morning of, we started the recording, and then when she started her recording, when she went to, we couldn't give her permission because the ability to give her permission was grayed out. Was she in test mode the other day.
Was she a co-host?
Not on the computer. We had her open a different computer that she was in, like an attendee. So we did it from her attendee mode. Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to play around with that. What I'm saying about sequence is that it could be that if you stop the cloud recording, you stop the cloud recording and then start the local recordings and then start the cloud recording again. But nope.
Yeah, you know how when you first come in, you stop it because you don't want people, you don't want to record all the things you're doing. Right. So we didn't do that on purpose. So we were like, okay, you're going to have it from the minute we opened the room until the minute we closed it to not lose it. And yeah, that's why I thought it was weird, because it just grayed out, but it did it when we practiced.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean by stopping the cloud recording and seeing if that changes it, and gives the option then for local recording. Sometimes those things overlap. So then the other thing is that you can do screen recordings as well, right? And so where you're running Zoom full screen and then use any number of screen recording software to take a recording, and that's another way as well. And so there's a few different ways, and the more important that the content is, this is always what's the cost of failure? If we don't have this recording, what does that mean? Often that can be disastrous. And so having 3 backups is a great thing to do, So we also have like hardware solutions, like I was saying before, the ATEM, and I had I could have my, if I was, There we go. There's I've got my screen output there. I can put Zoom there. I can go full screen, and then I can record that externally on the ATEM, and that's another really easy way to get a really good recording. So it's worth exploring multiple different ways of having recordings. Cool. What's next?
All right. Irina said, can you explain the number of broadcast emails allowed and the best practices? She has a schedule where she has a welcome email when registered, an email before a week before the event, an email on the day of check-in, one for those who haven't checked in, and an email of the day of event saying we're starting. Is there anything else that you would recommend?
Let me just run through that again. One welcome email when registered. So are you using the actual welcome email that is automatic? Yep. Okay. One email a week before the event. Introduce check-in. One email on the day and of the check-in. One email to those who didn't check in. We are starting. Sounds great. It sounds.
I just couldn't remember when Blue told us how many emails I allowed. I don't remember. I wish it was somewhere in writing so we could just look and see when we plan it. So that's why I put my own schedule there.
Yeah. So you can send 3 emails a day to an individual. And so it will to each individual. And so it's not necessarily 3 emails, right? Because as you might be filtering them, and that one person might get 2 emails where another person only got 1 because they've come in and they're all okay. So you're fine if you're working within that 3 limit per day. And
during the 3 days, right? 3-day event, 3 emails per 1 day. He was talking about 1 email a week before and 1 email after 1 week before after the event. So altogether, what's the picture?
that has changed a little bit, but before your event starts, and this is all about the time frame that you put on your event. And I really want us to fix this a little bit, because the event time frame was really important when we were on credit systems and thing when we had credits. It's less important now because you can create your event and make it 6 months long, right? And so technically now you're sitting within the event time window, and now you can send emails. You can send 3 emails a day for each one of those days before your event. Right.
You gave us a loophole. I do have 1 year long group, so I did create Obvio 1 year long, and it continues. So
it's one of those things that I really want to fix, because it confuses people and trips people up a bit as well. Muddy, did I accidentally say what you were going to say?
I was just going to say that event date, the question I had around Irina's event is, she said if she's sending 1 a week before and then 1 before check-in, if those 2 emails are before the official start time of the event, that could be a problem. But the way around it is just extend your start time out earlier, and then you'll have 3 emails per day. So, yep.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, and then I think you make a great point. It should say, it should say what the limit is, and ideally, what I would love is a log. Right, so I can go find Muddy in my attendees and see that Muddy received this email, and then this one, and then this one, and so I can see he's had 3 today, so he's not going to get another one. And this is just us managing the temptation to send marketing emails and spamming, people. Your sponsor says, hey, can I send an email out to all your list, and can you send that for us? You want to avoid that at all costs. Like that's not what it's for. It's a transaction email. It's not a marketing email. The transaction is that they have signed up to go to an event, and you're giving them the details to get to that event. That's what the purpose of those emails is for. Use a CRM to do all your marketing and stuff. By all means. I'm not saying marketing is bad. All right. Next question.
This one is from Jeff. They want your opinion. One of the pros of getting all access is you receive 3 discovery calls. I was wondering if I should email the link where they should schedule the call, or if I should have a button on the dashboard that goes to the link. Also, should they get access to the link before, after, or in the middle of the event?
Yeah. Blue, it would be good to ask Blue this. He would have some specific opinion on it. I have some outside of opinions. One of the things so first of all, the link, I wonder if we should email the link or have it on the dashboard. I like giving another reason for people to access the dashboard. And so having things that are tied there, I really like, because the other thing is that it keeps people out of their email. And so firstly, your email doesn't get lost in their inbox, which can inevitably happen. It also can distract them because now they're back in their email and they've got 5 other emails that they want to attend to. Whereas they can keep in the silo of your event by staying in the dashboard. So I like having all the links, everything they need is right there on the dashboard. You can do some trickery as well, where if you tie in the right services, I won't go right into this, but just so you know what could be possible, and what Blue has done, particularly on TVE. I think it was TVE. There's a few different ones where you could schedule an appointment, and once the appointment was scheduled, you could tie that back in. So this was like with Calendly, a few different services, and Zapier, and basically you can say once they've made their appointment, then update Obvio using Zapier, update Obvio to tag the person to say that they have made their appointment, and now you can change the dashboard based on that. So they've made their appointment. You don't have to show the button to make an appointment anymore because we know you've already got it, and then it might unlock something else. Here's a PDF of preparation for your call or whatever it is. Thank you for scheduling your appointment. You can do all sorts of customization on the dashboard for that. So that's a reason to do it in the dashboard, not just an email. And there was something else, button on the dashboard. And should they get access to the link before, after, in the middle of the event? Yeah, that's that last question is specific more to what Blue would say. I like where things change on the dashboard and something opens up during your event. So it makes more of an interesting story, right? So that you're stepping through your event, and now it's like, hey, if you go back to the dashboard, you've already talked about how we're creating this opportunity where you get to have a one-on-one call, and now you understand what that is all about. Now, when you go to the dashboard, you're going to see the link there. So you're spoon feeding people through your event. So they're not overwhelmed with a whole bunch of buttons on the dashboard when they first come to your event, but that they, but that it unfolds, the story unfolds, and the dashboard is changing and it's dynamic, and you've got more of an adventure. So, and there's another thing I can do. Okay, now at lunchtime on the first day, I can now schedule something. Oh, cool! Look at this. There's a new button, and that just creates more engagement with the dashboard. So that would be my thoughts on that. All right. Next question.
The next one is, she also wants to know if you can go to the dashboard, look at all the places I have the event times on them, and tell me what the event times are. I'm curious whether they are in your time or mine.
Uh-huh. It's a good question, Sarah. So I'm assuming your dad's not actually asking any of these questions. They are awesome questions, Sarah. You're quickly becoming my favorite person on these calls. So the way that the times always works is when you're entering times. If let's have a look at that quickly because it's a good thing for everyone to be reminded of. This is one of those things. I feel like I've complained about a couple of things about Obvio today about how we really need to fix that. One thing we don't need to fix, because we have fixed it, is event time. I really pushed for this where
Hey, Grant,
yes.
be mindful. Sarah just put in the chat, it's on a blog post.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I did miss that. That so that should that will be in event time. That's what you think too, Muddy, right? It'll be event time, not converted to local time.
That's right. But
Yeah.
more likely blog posts, if it's a typed time, it's going to be whatever you type, right? Like if you're actually like typing the agenda out in a blog post, but if it's the post, like if it's when the thing is going to post, that's event time. Yep.
Yeah. So we talk about event time as event time zone. So you choose the time zone. Now, any times throughout the site are based on that time zone. It was something we didn't used to have. I added it particularly for me in another time zone, very different time zone to lots of you guys. But often your team is spread across different time zones too, right? So you want to be able to just say your event time, hey team, we are working, our event time zone is this. And now every time we reference a time, it's going to be based on that. And so particularly when you're in the agenda, I'll just quickly mention this, right? So the agenda, when you're entering, see this is based on Eastern time, right? And so I enter all of the agenda items as Eastern time. But when I look at it, I see it in Australian Central Time, right? Because that's where my computer is. And so that's what happens for all of your attendees. And that's why the default text down here says your time zone. It's really important that we have the actual time, the name of the time zone there that helps that. Now, that's not what you asked. You're saying about this. So see this, if you do include the time, so see this hide date. If the date is shown, this is going to be Eastern time or the event time zone. So that's only the published date that shows here, and that will be because this is a perfect example, right? This is converting to my local time zone, but this is not, and it's actually showing that it's in Eastern time. And that's just the date of the blog. Do you know, we hardly use the date of the blog because we're really just using blogs to create content types or sort of content sections is why they're called sort of blogs. But if you wanted to actually have the date that it was logged, then you could display that. As Muddy said, of course, you can just add dates anywhere in this, and that would just be plain text, and it would be whatever you write it in as. But good practice is to say what time zone whenever you're referencing times that you do that. And of course, there's countdowns as well. Countdowns work the same, that they're based on event time zone, event time, and that will count down to that time. So hopefully that covers it on time. Heather, can you have a look for a question that you can answer while I just have to attend to something on an event for a second?
Sure. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just seeing what I can actually answer. Okay, Miriam, for your question about how to show where to add someone on the back end that will help you with the event, if you go into your app.obv.io, where you see your organization name at the top right corner, there's a little drop down arrow, and then you'll see an option that says team. When you click on that, you'll have, let me share my screen.
Okay, I'm actually seeing it. So it's on the right side. Team.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when I add that person, I add someone to my team.
Mm-hmm.
Am I adding them with that role that will apply to all of the events within that
We all work
organization?
within that organization. So different organizations can have different teams, but if you have different events within that organization, it's going to have the same team members. So if you have specific events that you don't want people seeing, you have to move that into a different organization. Otherwise, those team members will be able to see all the events in there. And so once you have a role created, just click on all the things that you want that person to be able to do. And then you can go to the members, and then you can choose the role that you want them to have, type in their email, and then hit invite. And once it gets invited, it will have them get an email from Obvio to join that organization, and then they will create a password and a login. And then they'll have to accept that, and they'll get into your organization.
And so when I do that with the roles, right now there's two people that I have. I want to add another one, and I want them to be able to create and do everything. If I give them admin role, they can't override anything of mine as the owner of the Obvio, correct?
They can't go into your actual like organization settings or billing. They can get, if you give them the add-on or purchasing, they could actually buy, like if you needed additional blocks of attendees or additional Zoom rooms, they would have the power to make those purchases if you choose the add-ons, but they can't kick you out of
Okay.
Obvio.
It's always about the security with me.
Yeah, just be mindful of the roles that you give to them. What would you like to say, Muddy?
Well, the way I heard your question is they can overwrite something you write. So it's not like you wrote it so they can't edit it. If they're admin level, you write something, they can write something different, or you create an event, they can delete an event. So just be a little bit mindful of that. But no, they can't get into your organization settings and remove you from the organization.
And right now, I just want these two people to sort of go in and play, so it doesn't matter what they're doing. And then later, when I'm actually serious about the events and things, then I'd be more mindful about what those sections will be, right? So
yeah,
thank you. That answered my question. Awesome.
And remember, as a leaper, you get the equivalent of Obvio Pro, which means you can have 3 organizations. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to create a separate organization that's just a playground, essentially, and they can do whatever they want in there. And then you can change what permissions they have in your real organization if you want, right? You can give them all the permissions in the playground. Who cares what they do? But then if you say, okay, I want you to be able to edit events, but not create new events in my actual organization, that may be a route to go.
And Muddy, that is like the most phenomenal advice. And I'm going to do that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone.
No worries.
Welcome. I'm back. Yeah, that is great. That's the best way to do it. And it's a good way to think of organizations too, right? Is the key thing that organizations does is defines your team who has access to that organization. Yeah. So it's a collection of events, but also the team. Cool. All right.
Okay. Richard said, since I want to be thorough, I am using option number 1 for the I'm not sure, and instructing attendees to use their email as username and temporary password I created to log in. Is this correct? I don't see a tech check button or link.
All right. Richard, are you with us? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay.
Thanks, Grant.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing the tech check step. So I'm going to be sending out our email.
Yep.
First time I'm using Avio instead of Zoom. So I want to get it right. So I'll look on the dashboard and I want to make sure that there's no blanks or missing steps for I can have a great experience for our attendees. So when I send the email within Avio, if I broadcast it, number one, can I set it up so each person has Dear Sally, Dear Fred, instead of, hey, everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally it does. So you've got the event. Should we have a look at the event together? You want to show it? Or?
Yes. Yes. So I should share
Do you
my
wanna-
screen?
Yeah.
Where are you? I have too many tabs open. I'm bad for that. Drives Lizzie crazy. So I'm going to bring it up in a second. Okay. Here's just the dashboard. Here's my vent.
Hang on. There you go. Try sharing now.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to my live page.
Okay. Right.
Oh, I went backwards. Patience.
Or I can share it if you like.
That'd be great. That would probably be better.
All right. What's your event called?
Oh, it's a Master Public Speaking and Presentation live virtual event.
Okay. Gotcha. Yep. All right. I'll share that now. We'll have a little look. All right. So let's have a look. So first, tell me how many people are you expecting to this event?
Well, 50 right now. We've got confirmed. Was it 6?
Okay. And tell me about what's your thinking behind the tech check? Is that something that you want to do? You think it's really important? What's your thinking there?
Yes, we're going to use it. I like the process. Let's start using it. So I've got the welcome email set up. After this, I'm gonna fill in a little details. Of course, we have the waiver form. We have our dashboard. So I want to be able to send it out.
Okay.
I expect them to be able to, first step, go ahead and log in with the default password I give them. The next step is they're going to create their own. Does that make sense? But as I see it, is there a magical button?
There's some easier ways to do this, right? Particularly because you're talking about using broadcast, right? You want to send emails out to all the attendees.
Yes, I do. I mean, I could use a ClickFunnels customer service portal, but I'd rather use Avio because they're going to be checking into Avio. So they're going to, it's going to be a little smoother.
Yeah. Well, with a broadcast, when you go to set this up, I'll answer 2 of your questions at once, right? Is that you can say, hi, variable first name. Right. So now it's just a merge code, or like a mail merge, it used to be called. Right. And so then you got the first name, and then here's your link, which you can do it, you can do it multiple ways, right? But that's one way to do it. And you can do this that says this is the login URL, and that becomes a link. I'll remove that one. So that's a link. When it looks like that, that is the login URL, which is a magic link. That's a tokenized link.
Oh, I see.
That means they don't need to use a password or email or anything.
Oh, good.
right? So you just bypass that step altogether, and you're saying, here is your login link. Now you can also make that a button, and so then you
That'd be
can,
good.
yeah, so it can be a nice big button. I mean, this can be all sorts of stuff, right? But whatever you want it to be, say that, and then the link, I want that to be the login URL, and there you go. That button is now set to be the login URL. Sometimes I also do things like this. This is your personalized link to access the dashboard, something like that, right? For email, and sometimes I even include the email, right? So now it's like their email address is shown right there. This is
Oh,
for
nice.
this email, right? This is your personalized link for this email, and here's your dashboard, right? Okay.
Good. Now, are you doing this live inside my?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you.
Yeah. So I can leave that, and what this shows you is
Please.
when we say, okay, send it to all people, or all attendees. That's showing currently there are 6 attendee matches for this criteria, which is all.
Good.
And so the thing that you'll need to do, in fact, oh, you've got this, great. So you've already got the email set up, and then if we try to save, it'll say whatever you want to put there. So just see if that. This is just an internal name for your email. Okay.
Gotcha.
So whatever. This is really key right here. Everything is based in draft. It won't send no matter what you set it to. It won't send until you've put that to publish. So I'm gonna leave
Okay.
that in draft for now. The other thing is that it can't. When you're setting up, you can only schedule, the earliest you can schedule it is 5 minutes into the future, and so it needs to be set 5 minutes. But you can schedule that whenever you like, and I suggest this for people, to set all your communications up like a week before, right? It's just not something you need to worry about if you just do that. And so that should save. So that's sitting there now. You can go back in here and edit and play around with that to get that going.
Good.
So just to be clear, there's another function called welcome email. Welcome email is a separate thing, which is an automatic email that is sent when somebody signs up. Someone, in whatever way that someone is added, an attendee is added to Obvio.
Oh, okay.
That could be manually written, imported. It could be using an integration with something. Whichever way, whenever an attendee appears in Obvio, they would be sent this email if it's enabled. And that's where you could do the same thing. Hey, thanks for signing up. Here's your dashboard access. Away you go.
Hey, I got a question. So I added everybody a couple of days ago. Can I still use that? Can I?
No. So that's exactly that's the point with this, is that you can't go back and send a welcome email to people that are already in the system. It's only going forward. So in order to do that, you just create a broadcast and you send it out to all the existing people.
Oh, okay.
And then you could copy and paste a bunch of that content into here as your welcome email. And now anyone that gets added, once you've enabled it, will start getting those emails directly.
Understood.
So that's that. The check-in. So that means now that I would ensure that let's disable the password, because now you're just going to send them their link anyway. They don't need a password.
Gotcha.
Right. So that we can turn that off.
Good.
You want the waiver, is that right?
Yep. Yes.
Yep, great. And so that'll work fine. That's all enabled. So the very first time that they check their link, they click on their link to access the dashboard, they'll come straight to the waiver.
Good.
Then the next step would be tech check. And now that depends if you've got tech check active at the time.
Oh,
So
okay.
you just need to think how you're thinking of using tech check, because that requires that you have someone sitting in a Zoom meeting at the time that people are coming to your dashboard. And if that needs, because they won't get access to the dashboard until they've done the tech check. And so you need to think about how you're getting people into your event. It sounds to me like you want people to have access to the dashboard before your event, and therefore before the tech check. So my gut feeling is that you probably don't need tech check on this particular event.
Okay.
And that you could do it more as a part of the first session, or as like an introductory session or something, like you're just getting going. Hey, you just want to make sure everyone's, cameras and things are working. And that you kind of kick off the whole thing with that and do it that way in the main meeting, because you're not dealing with hundreds of people. So I don't want to tell you how you run I don't want to tell you how to run your event, but it just sounds like tech check is really like, okay, we are doing tech check 2 days before, or, on this particular day, and you can come and make sure everything's working and get access. And it's in this window. If you want people to be able to see their dashboard outside of that window, then you're going to turn tech check off.
Then I would right now, I'll take your advice. You've been doing this for a little longer than me, and I trust you. So, well, let's go ahead and turn tech check off.
Yeah.
Ooh, tongue twister.
Yeah, that's right. So now, now you're in a pretty good spot, right? So where people you're gonna send them their login link through Obvio, which just handles all of that. They're gonna click that link. It's gonna go straight to the waiver. They're gonna go through that. And then once they've signed the waiver, it'll take them straight to the dashboard, and away they go. So now they've got access to everything that you've got here.
Oh, fantastic.
And then on the day, they'll enter the main stage, which is perfect. So that's all looking really good. And I think you've just kind of simplified that a little bit, keep that nice and simple, and easy for them as well, and giving them access early, so that they can download things and that sort of thing is great.
Yeah, the next step I have to do tonight is we have some workbooks, and so I'll download those under resources. That's a PDF form.
Yep, great.
That should be pretty easy. If I've done ClickFunnels, is it similar? Is it pretty easy?
To add a PDF?
No, yeah, for the downloadable resources.
Yeah. Add a resource. And so then you'll go a file, and you'll say, you can click here and you choose the file. It'll put it there. You can give it a name, and away it goes. And you can choose a little icon as well if you like the little, what sort of icon you want next to it, and then that will go in here like that.
Very good.
Very easy.
Very nice.
Muddy, you got something to add?
I think your advice for Rick is great as far as removing tech check to make it simple and to allow people to access the dashboard ahead of the event. And I'm curious, if you want people access the dashboard before the event, and then also wanted to create a tech check session before, like a day before the event, what would happen if you turned off tech check and then a day before the event turned on tech check and sent an email to everyone saying, hey, we're having a check-in, come and visit us? What happened to people who'd already been to the dashboard when they come back? Will that funnel them back into tech check Or since they're already checked in, will they just bypass that?
Is that a softball question, or do you not know the answer?
I think Rick would love to know the answer to that question.
I would.
Just,
Because that sounds like a great idea, but
just,
sometimes great ideas will get you up a pole.
I'm just, I'm just playing with Muddy. You're exactly right. Yeah, so you can do a combination of where you can turn on and off. What happens is in the system we have two kind of check-ins. Like we have a tech check and we have a kind of a dashboard check-in, as in that they've gone to the dashboard for the very first time. So when someone goes to the dashboard for the first time, whether they do tech check or not, whether that's enabled or not, we log that time. And when you do an export of your attendees, you'll get that time that says this is the check-in time that they went to the dashboard for the first time. Now, if after that, and really it doesn't matter if the attendee, whether they've been to the dashboard before or they haven't, if tech check is enabled and they haven't completed tech check, then it will take them to tech check before they can go to the dashboard.
Okay.
And so that means that yes, you can totally do what Muddy event. And then when it comes to when you want to do a tech check, you can turn on enable the tech check option, and now everyone, when they try to go to the dashboard, will get they'll get redirected to the tech check, and they need to do that. So but I guess what I would, and it's totally right, and that's a good way of using the functionality. The key point with tech check, firstly, we're using it less these days than we used to. We, at the start of the pandemic, we were using it a lot because a lot of people didn't have Zoom installed, and they also weren't super familiar with how things worked and where chat was and things like that. There's not too many people you come across now that are like, "Oh, I've never used Zoom before." They've used it for one reason or another. So we use it less. Having said that, on some of our big events, like for Tony Robbins, they do use tech check on all of those, and it becomes a really helpful thing with a large group of people. And I think this is the point, is when you have a large group of people and you want to give a human touch to a smaller group, then tech check's a great way of doing it, because we've built a system that can allow as many tech check rooms as you want. So you have 1,000 people coming, and so now you want to have 10 tech check rooms, and know that small groups of people are going to come through those, and they're going to get a good experience and a kind of one-on-one experience. Whereas when you have smaller events and you only be running one tech check room anyway, chances are you could probably add that to the start of your event, and just include it as sort of an intro part. And now some people do breakout rooms to do tech checks, right? Like you send people off into breakout rooms, and you're like, the purpose of this is just to make sure everything's working. You can talk, camera's working. Do that in groups together, and that's going to be a quick, easy way. Meet a few new people and make sure everything's working for you. We're going to do it for 5 minutes. Let us know if you've got any problems. That sort of thing.
Nice.
Yeah. See how you can just kind of make it a little bit easier. But so it does. The tech check functionality in Obvio is probably more heavy lifting than is required for a smaller event. But it's good to know that it's available. Yeah.
So. Yeah, it is. And again, if the people that really want it, that's their personality, and it's important for them. Some people say, "Oh, I'll come like 5 minutes before, I'm fine."
That's right.
They've been doing it all their life. Other people think, "I don't want to be lost in the shuffle, so it feels like somebody cares." And so, hey, you give them that service.
100%. And you make a really great point, and that is we have done events before where we say, hey, if you want to check that everything's working and know how the event's going to work and all of this, then the day before, for these 2 hours, we've got a window where you can come and check in with us. And that's where they would come to the tech check. They don't have to find buttons on the dashboard. They just come to tech check. You're in there. You're like, this is how it's going to work. Do you know where the chat thing is? Yep, great. That's awesome. Really looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Um, Once you did that, you might get half of your people come or a quarter of your people come. You turn off tech check at that point, and now all the rest of the people will just go straight through into your event the next day. And then the nice thing about that is you can say, sure, most of the people didn't get that experience, but the people that did really valued it. They really appreciate it, and it was an
that's
easy
the key.
it was an easy thing for you to do, and you didn't have to you were doing it the day before anyway. And that does work really well, and I've done that with events, and those people become like the biggest fans, right? Because you've already won them over before the event's even started. So
you bet. All about customer service.
Cool.
Thank you.
May I add for Rick and Liz, the tip I created, the tip from my experience, I also use Tech Check for scheduling a follow-up appointments in a small setting. So I make sure that everyone who comes through the Tech Check, they're talking to my team member, and they schedule a time when I will have a meeting with them on Zoom, and it's follow-up from my event. So I don't catch them after the event randomly because people don't pick up their phones, but they already have it and they show up the next day or the day next after whatever you schedule. And I made sales like that, follow-up sales from my scheduling that follow-up call with that person or with those people. So that's why I have my tech check for sure.
I love it. Great idea.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, Arena. Very cool. Enric.
Yeah, just another point for Rick. I use the tech check really as a, almost like visiting the registration desk at an event. And it really, really does work very well to maximize your attendance and remind people like a week out, hey, listen, I got this event, come and check in. We're going to give you like the best practices. Here's what you need, all this kind of stuff. And it really does help. So I don't assume that people are so stupid that they don't know how Zoom works in this age, because then they're probably not my right fit client. But I use it as a registration desk, and it works super, super nice. And what I do, it's not totally enabled now, but if you look at my like my dashboard, right? This is no, that's gone dead for some reason. This ATEM switcher. It was working that's a pity. Well. Yeah, it was working so well, but it's dead now anyway. So we're back to the green screen. So I will have a coffee shop button that pops up after the event where people can jump into the coffee shop, and that's where we close the most sales. Like the morning after, like that, I'll have another button pop up on the event, and it really does work super, super nice. Yeah, man. But anyway, I gotta run. I had a lot of questions for you, Grant, but it's my wife's birthday, and I gotta roll, man.
You got priorities. We can explore. I mean, you can come back and watch the recording afterwards. So,
well, I got one quick urgent one, and that's really between the synchronization between Go High Level and Obvio. Thank you very much, Heather. I mean, she really jumped through a lot of hoops for me yesterday. We had all sorts of synchronization issues not working and so on. It is working, but I noticed that Go High Level exports everything in lowercase. And then on their side, they have a formatting to make the name back into title case. Is there anything we can do on the Obvio side to fix that? Because now all of my attendees are in lowercase. Nothing to do, huh?
No, that's what Muddy's saying. That's what I was going to ask Muddy. Do you know one annoying thing with that too is that once you go to title case, how do you handle things like hyphens or, McDonald, things like with inter
Yeah.
case? Because then you kind of upset people with those names as well, where they're
Yeah.
like, what's happened to my name? Whereas
Yeah.
at least when everyone is lowercase, it's all the same. But I agree, it does look weird, and it's weird for high level to do that as well.
It has
Marty?
to do with, I've asked this question to Blue before, and each integration works differently with the API, and the way that the high level API sends that data, it actually sends it as if it were like tags. And so everything comes through lowercase, and it has to do with their API. There's nothing that could be done on the Obvio side, unfortunately, except to use Zapier, right? If you use Zapier and not the direct integration, you would go around that issue. But yeah, that's on high levels end.
It's weird.
Yeah, no, because I noticed even if I rewrite, fix the names in Obvio, the next time there's a synchronization, boom, it just overwrites them all again. You know what I mean? And that's a little frustrating. And now I thought maybe we could do something with like tags or something like that, because obviously you can add emojis to the whole thing, but no go, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's always workarounds that could be created on our end to try to fix it. But as I said, like handling some of the edge cases of names can be tricky, um, knowing what to do there. But I would rather us, petition high level to be saying, fix your game, output the text the way that it's inputted, you know,
Yeah.
not changing. So, yeah.
Here's the dashboard, by the way. It's now I just picked a different computer for that to work. So
great.
Rick, are you still there? No, he's talking to Liz. All right. Well, I'll move on from that one. Listen, guys, I got to run. A wife's birthday, and I got to make dinner. It's my job. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
No worries. All right. Okay. Next question.
Jean said, is there a video on how to connect the Shocks headset to use with live events? I'm not sure if I said that right. Is it Shokes?
Yeah, Shocks is right. You're right.
Okay, cool.
You're right.
Me.
Muddy, is there a video?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
But it's a two-step process. So the first step is to connect the Shocks headset. The default model is a Bluetooth headset. They do make a version that's called Shocks UC that has a little USB dongle that directly connects. But step one is connecting the headset to your computer. So that's a little different on Mac or PC, but essentially it's a Bluetooth device. So you need to add it as a new Bluetooth device. When you press and hold the power button on Shocks, yeah, okay, so you've got that part going. The second part is, once it's connected to your computer, then you need to select it as your microphone and your speaker in Zoom. So if you click the up arrow next to mute, it will show you all of your available microphones on your computer and all of your available speakers. Now, the Shocks may show up as both a headset and headphones because it has two different Bluetooth profiles. You want to use the one that says headset. And if you choose headset for the microphone, it'll be the Shocks head microphone, and headset as the speakers, it'll be the Shocks earpieces. So there you go.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, next one.
Our next one's from Catherine. Are there any Zoom updates we'd benefit from knowing about?
Yes. I mean, there's a few things. So Zoom announced Zoom version 6. So Zoom Workplace, they call it now, is the client that you use. There's a few changes in the way that it works, in the design of it and how it lays out. and we're playing around with a few of those features. Probably the biggest feature that you might enjoy, and that I'm using right now, is that, you've always had in the view options, you've had speaker view, like sort of active speaker, then you have gallery view. And so you could switch between seeing everyone's faces or just the person who's talking. Well, now they have a kind of hybrid of that, which is multi speaker, and which works quite well. And that's what I'm using now. So whoever's talking is shown up nice and big, and then you can also see the gallery view sort of down the bottom as well. So that works really well. Muddy, did you have some other ones?
There's one really neat one I've seen recently. It was introduced just before version 6. It also carries through to version 6, but it has to do with screen share. We're used to, being able to share a screen in Zoom. There are now some advanced screen sharing options. Well, there are screen sharing options that allow you to share like normal. That's the default. But there's also one that allows you to share just like what Anrik did a moment ago, where actually your content is behind you, but you are still kind of showing, just like Grant is demonstrating now. The one I think is actually the most powerful is the last option, which gives you this side-by-side view that usually is only available with a more advanced hardware or software tool, but it allows you and your content to show up side by side. And what's not apparent, so this view that Grant is showing is a really cool looking advanced level move. What's not immediately apparent that's also available in this view is it's actually editable. When it shows up, you can click and drag how big you are, and it actually allows you to crop in on you and how big the content is. So you may have to stop share and reshare in order to show that, but there's some really neat, really advanced looking screen share options. Now that to me is kind of one of the most powerful new features for event.
Huh. Yeah, I hadn't seen that you can change it. That's pretty cool. You can kind of rearrange those. So now if I share that, now you see that I've got myself bigger and the screen share a bit smaller. So that's some that would be normally what we would need to do in an ATEM or in some sort of other external system to be able to do that all within Zoom is pretty cool feature.
Thanks very much for the update.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Cool. Jane, you had a question?
Hey.
Hey.
I've been getting a message for like the last 2 or 3 days, supposedly from somebody at Facebook, telling me they're getting ready to shut down my business account, just solve it. And I didn't answer them because I was afraid it might be a scam, because like this person spells her name, or I don't know. I can't tell if it's fake or if it's real.
Hey, Jane, have we just turned into just general tech support now? Is that what's happened?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We have. I'm sorry.
You're just like, we're just having a chat about Obvio. Why don't we talk about Facebook and spam?
I'm so sorry, but I've been driving all the way, listening all the way for an hour and a half, and then I just got home. And I'm like, they're saying they're going to shut down my
It
account.
sounds very spammy to me, and I wouldn't be too concerned about that at all. I think you could just contact Facebook about it. But I think you can ignore it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so if I want to contact Facebook, I just go facebook.com.
You can ask Facebook. I'm not sure. If you want to contact Obvio, you're in the right place.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Next Obvio-based question.
Sorry.
You're fine.
You're funny.
Just decent knowledge.
I used to think Muddy worked for like I used to send Muddy all my questions because I thought he worked for Sage. Sorry, I'm always out of line.
You're all good. You're all good. Okay.
So from Holly, she said, how do you get the ask a question button on the dashboard like this? Is this a Slido integration?
Oh, no, it's not. It's actually pretty simple. There is an option. Let me see if I've got the right one. Here we go. Let me share here. So the way you do it is you create a button, but then here, see this, you might be normally creating a link, or you might be doing a join area button. You've just got a form, and then you choose which form that is. And now that's the form it'll open. When you click ask a question, form, and choose the form. I like that question. That was nice and easy.
Beautiful. Onric had a question that said, will a Rodecaster Pro 2 eliminate the problem of turning original sound on and off?
No, it won't. No. So it doesn't matter what input you have. The default is for Zoom to do its kind of voice isolation or focusing on voice, no matter what microphone or system you've got connected. So you would still need to enable original sound in order for that to sound correct. Cool. Next one.
He also asked, can you make a recommendation on how to record a 3-day event if we should not rely on Zoom recording?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways. I mean, look, it depends on the makeup of your event. Like if your event is primarily you sharing, like you're sharing content and you're speaking through things and whatever, then I would be trying to do a local record. Onric, if you're using the ATEM, you can do a recording in the ATEM, or in the camera that you're using, like have a local recording that's even before it gets to Zoom. And now you've got really high res, high bit rate recording that you can use. As far as recording the far end and how that works is like you want that to be included in a replay or something, then as I was saying before, local recording on a computer will work. Screen capture, I don't know which ATEM you have, but if you've got an ISO, then you can record multiple inputs, right? And so you can have Zoom coming back in, and you can record a full view of what is happening in Zoom as well in the ATEM. There's a few different ways of doing that, but I would think of a few different ways. A screen capture recording sitting on a computer. I've also done computers that are not at my house, and had other people record things, like there's a bunch of different ways. I mean, there's some complex ways of doing it as well, and there's using other systems like Zoom ISO and all this to be able to pull in individual feeds and record it that way. But generally what we're doing, and what Blue does is not using any special software at all. It's just the Zoom client, and then just has a bunch of hyperdeck recorders, Blackmagic recorders, and they're recording different things that record the whole thing. So there's a few different ways, but I would record in your camera if you can, and then on the ATEM as well, and get your content all recorded well. Okay, next question.
Jenny said, how do you set up a timer as simple as possible? I'm not using a switcher or an ATEM. Any difference for a timer for me versus a timer for my audience that they'll see like during breaks?
Okay. So there are timers that you can use in Zoom, and I won't go too much into that. As in, you can play around with timers in Zoom. Search YouTube for Zoom timers, and there are some things that you can use there. All I would say is what I use, and that was when we are talking to Sarah before, we're talking about doing a countdown timer and using a video from YouTube, or creating a timer video that you're then sharing, and now that shows, and it just gives you really good control, and I like doing it that way. You know exactly what's being shared. As far as so yeah, if you don't want to do a full screen thing, then I mean, the screen sharing options now that we were just playing with, you could totally do that would work really well, right? Because you can actually have a screen share of a timer video that's on YouTube that you're sharing, that, and still have your image nice and big, and you can rearrange that. Have a play around with that. I like that idea. Now you got full control over it, and it's not something else you're relying on in Zoom to do the timer, right? You're just playing out a video off of YouTube, or that type of thing that's counting down for you. So that's how I would play around with it. The more advanced stuff that you're saying, like with an ATEM and stuff, is where we would overlay a timer, on top of us, things like that. That's a little bit, it's a more complex thing. But using that screen share function, play around with that in Zoom. I think you probably get a really good result from that, where they can see the timer, and then you can sort of go full screen with a timer if it's like, we're going on a break now. It's awesome to have timers at breaks and things like that. You could do a 20-minute break, and then you have a 20-minute countdown video. Everyone knows where they're at, So does that help? Yep. Sweet. All the best with it.
She also had another question about how do you set up a downstage monitor for housekeeping notes? Is it easiest to use a separate laptop, or can she use an iPad?
Yeah. Okay. So this depends on your setup as a host, and how you want to think about your eye lines, right? Like, where is it that you're looking at, and how far away is that from the camera? So something to think about is the further away, often the further away that you can, the further away that you can get your screen, the less eye movement you're making, right? Obviously, you have a screen really close, and then you can see the eyes moving like this. The further away it is, the less your eyes have to move. And so when you can get that kind of behind your camera and even further behind, then now your eyes aren't moving that far away from the camera, and that can work really well. So I've seen setups. So let me say first, the ultimate is a teleprompter, right? Like you can get a teleprompter that you put on the front of your camera, and now you're looking through that screen. You can see all the text on the screen, and you're looking at the camera. And there is the Elgato. Would you recommend that, Muddy? You've played around with it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Elgato prompter, and it connects via USB-C, and it shows up to your computer as if we're another monitor, but it doesn't count as another monitor as far as like your computer. If your computer can only support 2 monitors, it doesn't count towards that, but it just shows up as another monitor because it uses something called display weight. But it works great. It's lightweight, so it can just sit right in front of even a webcam or a more expensive professional level camera. You can put whatever you want on. So you can put your notes on there. You can also put the Zoom call on there and actually be making direct eye contact. So I love it. And the beautiful thing is they're now in stock. I just ordered one for a client, and it showed up in 2 days, 3 days. So
there you go. So that could be a great option. It means that you're kind of sharing an existing screen, or you're trying to putting things on there, and so you still need a way of managing what slides you have on, or what you're doing with that. That's kind of the ultimate. The other thing I was going to say is just having a screen behind your camera, and now you just you can move things around so that you've still got sort of eyesight of it, but your camera is kind of sitting in the middle of the monitor. You know what I mean? So I think play around with those sorts of things and see what works best. But eyeline is really important. But yeah, people know when you're reading. I guess that's the thing. What's one thing I don't love about teleprompters sometimes is that sometimes you can get sort of this glazed look, right? As you kind of, and it's amazing how you can still pick that up over Zoom, but actually the convergence of your eyes, where your eyes are looking, and if they're reading, and if you're reading versus just communicating with people, and so I know you weren't specifically saying about script and reading a whole script, but just having something where you've got a good view. Does that kind of answer your question? Do you have any follow-up question on that?
Yeah, so I currently have my setup to where it's a TV with a Zoom background, so in front of the camera line. So if I was doing, for example, something that was important enough that I wanted to have a few words behind there, ultimately I could kind of just switch out the Zoom background for that moment and pretend like I still see the faces if I wanted it. Is that have you heard people do that?
Yeah. Yes.
I do have a teleprompter, but I'm kind of scared to put it all together.
Okay, right.
It's my event's this weekend.
Okay. I tell you, the thing that I say the most about this sort of stuff is keeping it really simple, because there is already right now in you, there is already a cognitive load that's going on about how you're going to make all this happen. And the last thing you want at your event is for your brain to be divided in what is, oh, am I putting this on the screen now, or do I need to drag my notes over on top of Zoom, or do I, there's all of that stuff's going on. You want to minimize that as much as possible. Therefore, the objective that you're going for, which is to try to make it a really slick show and to make it all work really nicely, can totally be compromised because it ends up overcomplicating, and now you're getting thrown and you get yourself into a tiz because you're trying to manage too many things when your objective is great. It's like you're wanting to do a really clean, great show. But by overcomplicating it, you compromise that, And so I think there's totally ways of doing it. What you want to be is really confident with the system that you go into. And so this is the car I know how to drive right now. I don't need to buy a brand new car that will be better, but I don't know how to drive it. And so I just encourage you with that the important thing is about the human contact that you have. And wherever you can, you have systems that just sit there and they don't do anything else. And they don't do lots of things. And so if it means that your gallery view is off somewhere else and that's where you can see people, that's okay for this, because you always know that I'm just going to see people there all the time. It's not going to change on me. And then I have another screen over here that's my DSM, that I can see my content. It's not ideal that my eye line is off, but that doesn't change. And that's really consistent. I can rely on that. That's what I would really encourage you to do. I mean, you see me all the time. I'm sharing my screen over here. This is not ideal because I'm talking over here. But it stays the same all the time. And so, yeah, is that helpful? I'm trying not to complicate it and just iterate. This is the best thing about is the iteration. Let's just drive this car now, and then the next show you'll go, what's the one thing that I want to change and improve on? Because the ultimate is that you are ensuring that you're delivering your content and you're connecting with people and you're making a real connection with them. They're not going to care about what your setup is, and it looks fancy, and this did this and whatever. At the end of the day, they want to know you. And so how do you best set yourself up to do that? It's the types of thing I think of. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think that's probably exactly what I needed to hear. I've already up leveled in one area, so I think I'm good for this one, and I'll up level again the next one.
Yeah. No, awesome. Yeah, and
Thank you.
great work. You've already done some improvements, right? So that's all we can ask for. Depending on what your belief is, one of the a quote that I use all the time is, perfection won't be seen this side of heaven. Excellence is being better week to week. And that's what we're shooting for. We're shooting for excellence. And so now you've already chosen the thing that you're doing better this time than you did last time. And so that's excellent. You're going to smash it. Great work. All the best with it. All right. What's next?
Irina said, when I have a co-host and they leave the meeting, does it end it for everyone? I've had this happen several times while I was still on the Zoom and Obvio. When the co-host left, it ended the meeting for everyone. Is there something in the settings, and what can I do to prevent this?
No, it's not possible. A co-host cannot end the a co-host can't end the meeting. So they don't have the option to. So that if that's what happened, they must have been the host. So I can see I'm the host in this meeting. I can see a button that says end. And Heather's a co-host in the meeting. She'll see a button that says leave, right? Which is different. But even if I click end, I still get the option to leave or end meeting for all. And so if I hit leave, it's going to ask me to assign the host to someone else. And so it would be to assign the host to Heather, and then I leave. So something else is going on there that's not co-host ending the meeting.
How did they become a host? Maybe they were a host. I don't know.
Are they coming through the
because she came, this woman, because she came before me, or what? How did
Yep.
she?
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
whoever first starts the Obvio, that person is the host?
Correct.
What do you do to prevent that? Do I have to be there very early so nobody comes earlier?
What Irina is saying is that she's very important, and she doesn't need to be there early. She needs to come in 30 seconds before the show starts, because she's the most important person. She just needs to fly, just swoop in, and here I am, everyone, ready to start. So it depends on how. So that they were coming back through the Obvio back end, right? Is that's how they were starting the meeting? Yeah. So the first person that starts, they are the host. So the trick a little bit of a trick for you. And that is, if the meeting has already started and you are going to join, the way that we're handling doing it where the co-hosts have the right name is we're doing sort of like an alternate host thing. And the advantage with that is it's really cool. The advantage with that is that it means that that the name is correct. The disadvantage is that you do not have the option to reclaim host doing it that way. So if you want to be the host and you haven't started the meeting, the best way to do it, that we have a little hidden feature, and that is that when you go to click join the meeting as a co-host, if you hold the shift key on your computer,
Grant, you're giving away all of our secrets.
I know. If you hold down the shift key, then that will take you in as the user of the owner of the meeting, and then you can reclaim host.
How do you reclaim host? Do you go into settings and
As
say,
soon as
I'm
you
the
go into
host,
Zoom,
I'm the important one?
you can do you can do it that way. But when you join like that, there'll be a big pop-up that'll say, would you like to reclaim host? At which point you could. Sorry, I just had a Mayday call about an event. Tends to happen.
So to be clear, where this is happening is in the actual Zoom areas, right? So you're in Zoom areas in the back end. That's where normally you would turn on the room. And if you're the first person, and here's an easy way to know if you're the first person in or not. If you're the first person in, once you enable the room by toggling it on, there's a button next to it that turns blue. And if you're the first one there, that button says start. If it says start, you're the first one there. When you click it, it'll start the meeting and it'll drop you into Zoom. If someone has already started the meeting, well, first of all, it'll show you that there's someone there because it gives you a little counter of how many people are in the meeting. But that button, instead of saying start, will say join. If you click it when it says join, you'll come in as co-host. But as Grant is saying, if you hold down shift and click join, you'll come in as the account owner, and there'll be a big banner when you enter Zoom that says, do you want to reclaim host or stay co-host? And you basically have to choose one of those two in order for that banner to go away. So
This
hopefully
is
that gave
another
you enough
mic
time,
drop
Grant.
for me. This is great. Today is just, oh my gosh. Thank you. All these little details. Oh, wow. Thank you.
And Irina, you can also have, let's say, whoever is in that meeting is the host. They can assign you the host when you get in. And that can be something that you tell your team, like, oh, if you're going to be in there before I am, once you see me in here, give me the host, because they can do that.
Thank you, Heather. Great
You're welcome.
to know.
And then I saw your next question is to create a laser coaching application. So when you create a form, you can go onto your dashboard, and when you can either make a button that will have an option, when you create a button and it has like join area and you click main stage, there's also an option that will have forms and it'll list out all the forms. So if you have the laser coaching application, you can choose that as the form. So when they click a button on your dashboard, it will take them to the laser coaching application that you created. Or you can insert that into a blog post as well, where you can link it up to the form that you created. So there is a way to link those throughout the dashboard in different areas.
On a dashboard in a blog post, you just go into styling and then link it to the form?
Yeah, let me share my screen really quickly and then you can see. All right, so if you were to, you can add a blog post. If my computer wants to work. And then you can go to the attachment down here where it has form. And then you can choose one of the forms that we have. So we have the poll currently as one of the things on our dashboard that Blue put on there. And then that's where it will pop up. And this would be, it's showing up as your actual form on the dashboard. So if I go into the settings for this one, you'll see how it's just connected to the form that we created. And that could be the same thing with your laser coaching application.
And how do we even with the poll, I'm looking at the poll on the dashboard, and then what? How did Blue see it immediately? Or maybe it's in a video you told me. That's okay. Yeah, it's in the video.
Yeah, it'll be in that video, but there is view statistics when you click on these three buttons next to your form. So when you click on that, that's where you will see this automatically. And then you can also download any of your submissions, which was send it to your email address. And then you'll get an Excel document of that. So that works more for like the laser coaching applications. It would probably be better to download those submissions.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
What's up, Muddy?
Heather, when you were showing that in a blog post, there's a little check mark there that says like view as modal or something like that. Do you want to mention that? Because there's kind of two ways that you could display that. And that might be relevant, especially as it relates to maybe like a full laser coaching application.
Yeah, sorry, my computer's going slow right now. It doesn't want to share. I believe, Brant, am I wrong if I say open in modal, that it'll just open up in a separate area? I don't know about that.
It's like a pop-up. So
yeah,
I was setting you up for a softball. On our form right now, when you click ask a question, that button pops up the form, right? And you see the form kind of as a pop-up window. That's what the modal is. So if you were to say view as modal, all you would see there is the button that says laser coaching application. When you click the button, then a pop-up comes up showing the whole form. If you don't have that checked, the whole form is shown in line inside the blog post.
Yep, that's good. Does that answer that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yep.
No worries.
Okay. The next one is from Sarah. Is it possible to create a help desk inside of Obvio?
Yeah, so it depends on the type of help desk you're talking about, but generally, yes, on larger events, we often will have a separate Zoom meeting that we call help desk. And so you have like your main stage area, and then you have another Zoom area, which is called help desk. And now during your event, people can click help desk, and that'll take them into Zoom, and you might have your support staff are sitting in there able to help people. And so that can be really helpful. We do that on of our events where you want to send people there to get extra help or talk to the it's kind of like a sort of the registration desk after your event has already happened, or sorry, after your event has already started. You can go back to the registration desk and get some help. And so that's what that's like. We run another Zoom meeting, have someone sitting in there, and now attendees can go and check in there. Apart from that, you can do things like a support system like help. Is help desk, isn't it? Helpdesk.com. Yeah, helpdesk.com is what we use, and then that's like a ticket system, right? So that where you can have or Zendesk, things like that, where you can have people email, and then you can have tickets and assign them to a team. And so, particularly when there's more than one person in your support team, that's when you start needing systems to manage it rather than just an email. So there's a few options there.
You can also create a form that's a short answer, and you can have people type that in to ask a question. And then you guys can just see it on your end. The way that we're reading ours through moderation, you could kind of have a help desk there and just ask them to require their email address.
It's a great idea. Yep. All right.
You're good for the next one?
Nearly done. Yeah.
Okay. Jenny said, if my CRM isn't connected, is there a best practice to know who should go into the celebration lunch?
Yeah. So all that the CRM would be doing is really tagging or grouping back in Obvio, and so Obvio is still looking for that tag. You're probably creating that that welcome lunch is probably another Zoom area, a Zoom area meeting. And then now you're just filtering based on the data that you've got. And so obviously you'd like that to be automated, right? Like once someone has signed up, then you want that to be automated and going back through to Obvio. But if it is manageable, to just you see the things come through and you can just manage it manually and just type in add a tag to people. If you've got someone to do that, then that could work. It depends on the numbers you're thinking of. I mean, hopefully it's 1,000 people sign up for it, and then that'd be a good problem to have. But if it's a manageable number, then just finding them in the attendee list and adding a tag, welcome, is the tag, and you've already set up the button on the dashboard that says, welcome launch or welcome lunch or whatever. And that it's the visibility rules on that are set to be tag equals welcome. That can be already set up. And now you're just manually going through, find each of the people that have signed up, add welcome to their name, and away you go. That cool? There are ways of doing it. There are ways of doing it sort of with Zapier, and so you could, sort of just do a focused setup that is just for that. That maybe through your payment system or however they're actually signing up, you could have it then, if the payment system takes a payment, then it can pass the email through to Obvio and update user, add the attendee. But simple and also not your problem is also a good thing. Having someone else manage that for you is a good thing, but it's hard when you it's hard when you're building the whole thing. I always say that if it works big, it works small. Well, that's great. A big event has a whole bunch of staff, and you may not be able to afford that yet. So cool. All right. Is that the last question, Heather? It is. Irina, you've had too many questions. You've used up all of your questions for today.
I'm very important, remember?
Oh, yes, you are. You are important.
You said it. Just a very quick question. When we say never mute people when they come to Zoom before the meeting, how do you guys manage it actually, Heather, or in Leap when they moderate the chat? So they never mute everybody because you will mute the speaker as well. So how do you mute everybody but not the speaker? What do you do before the event? I usually don't mute anybody. My events are small, but if I do, then how do I do it?
Let me just check one thing. Just double checking the mute again. I mean, generally, what all we're doing is that we manage. The default is that mute upon entry is on, so mute all upon entry. So people are muted when they come in, and so that's a good start. And then in your host tools, they're called now, was called security before. There's an option there as to whether your participants can unmute themselves or not. And so generally we would manage that. And so we would just turn, if we're not doing Q&A, we're not doing kind of, allowing people to unmute themselves, then we would have that turned off, which means everyone comes in muted and they can't unmute themselves. And then when you get to the section of the show where you're like, okay, now you can unmute, you can either go to that person and hit ask to unmute, or if they've given consent, you can unmute them directly, right? So you can just hit unmute. And so now you're doing that per person, On this one, we don't have many people, and so we just keep it open. It's just easier. We don't have to manage unmuting people. So that's the couple of different ways you can do it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Makes sense. Yep. What I was trying to find is that mute all button. Okay. Oh, there it is. It's right in front of me. I was looking in a menu and I couldn't find it. I'm just going to test. So I can mute all, and of course I'm still.
The official name for that button is mute all except host.
Yeah. Yeah, I have seen that. Now, if Heather was unmuted, I just want to test this for fun. I'm pretty sure it will mute her. So if you're unmuted, Heather, and I hit mute all, yeah, it does co-hosts, but doesn't.
Is it just in the mute button right on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in, yeah, okay.
The mute all button, yeah.
It's on the new Zoom, right? Number 6.
It's only visible if you're the host or co-host, and it's actually at the bottom of the attendees panel.
That's right. In the participants tab. Yeah, that's right. Yep. And I think I just double check this too, is that Heather, if you click mute all in the participant tab at the bottom.
Yeah, I can mute you.
That's because you're not host, right, Grant? Your other machine is host?
No, I'm host. So I think when you hit mute all, Heather, that muted me and not you, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. I'll do it again. Look, you're muted again. I have all the power.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So it's mute all except me, actually, Muddy, in that instance. Yeah.
Got a new name.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the reasons I like OSC is I have a command that says mute all except spotlighted.
Yeah, nice.
But that's super advanced.
Yeah, it is. It's a whole nother level. That is cool, though.
And Sarah, did you have your hand raised? Did you need to ask one more thing? Go ahead. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh. Her mic is not working.
Is it because I muted all? Hang on. We've been playing around too much now.
Is it possible to create a new page in Obvio? So no, however, you can reuse other pages and rename them and use that to kind of do a workaround for it. So make sure, like, some ones you can't edit like super specifically, like if you have a speaker or sponsor page, it's going to be that same layout, but you can utilize it for different ways and different names. I would say probably the FAQ page is probably the best one if you're trying to manipulate something else into happening. But you can't add another page, unfortunately. All right. Grant, do you have any last words of wisdom?
Go forth and prosper. Oh, Sarah, did you have a question? Last question. Nope. Yes. Nope. Oh, but you can't unmute yourself. I don't know how you disable that. That's really weird.
This was a perfect distraction for a 2.5-hour drive. So good call, everyone.
Nice. All right. We'll call it there then. Thank you, Heather. Sorry for the couple of distractions I've had.
And Grant, last words. I don't know if you saw my text in the chat, but my comment. But when you talked about this email, this is a great tip, because do you remember when you were showing the email broadcast email, you put the magic link, the name, the magic link, and you added this email? I didn't even think about it, but people use different emails, and it's great to add this email, because it will only work with this email. So it's little, but we never think about it, and it's actually mic drop. So I just wanted you to know this. Thank you.
Nice.
It's like
That's
that
awesome.
button. The button tops the charts, but this is the second one.
That's great. Thank you, Amy. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week, same time. And you can catch us in the support channels and things, the live chat, and also help at obv.io in the meantime. All right. See ya.
Bye.